So the other side of the story is, of course, the depositional shorelines. And typical features include things like Bay Barrier, Bay Mouth Bar, Tombolo, Barrier Island, Spit, and so on. It's easier to see the figures and then remember the names. Okay, so you have depositional features, river deltas. They are depositing tons of sediments. Obviously, a depositional feature. We'll see a little bit more about it later on. And you create features like this. It is spit, depends on which way the energy is moving and how much energy there is and where the material is being supplied from. So it's basically spit is like a spine. It's what you use for doing a barbecue, for example. Okay, that's where the word comes from. And tombolo is basically something that connects the mainland or two islands, and it's called a tombolo. So here you have a little island and there's the mainland, and the transport of sand and the wave energy is such that it ends up depositing and basically closing the gap. So that's a tombolo. And a bay barrier is when you trap some water behind and end up creating a lagoon, which is very common, as we will see later on. And here you have another split, and you have a barrier island being formed because the energy is deposited in such a way that just in front of the mainland you create a long shore bar, which over time can get colonized by certain vegetation and so on. Remember, as I said, nature makes the rule, biology finds the loopholes. So as soon as you provide some surface, a bird might come and deposit some seeds, and grass may begin to grow, or a little plant. Then chemical weathering happens, soil gets formed, and so on and so forth. These take a long time, but nonetheless barrier island may get formed and forming a lagoon behind. So we will see later on that the human activity actually includes colonizing barrier islands, which is not a good idea, because in this case the energy of the waves coming in is being deposited on the barrier island, and if you build on it, then that erosion associated with the barrier island is going to affect whatever you build on the barrier island. Obviously not a good idea. So here is a very famous place called the Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. Very rich people live there, including Obama, the previous president. So here is a bay barrier, very nice long bay barrier built because of the depositional process. And here is a nice long spit that has been formed. And here is California Goat Rock Beach, where a tombolo is formed. We said the Pacific Island, the Pacific coast of the US is mostly a erosional coast, but obviously locally you can get circulation and wave protection such that you end up creating a depositional feature, like a little island here being connected to the cliff. So you can see all around there are erosional features, right? These are all erosional features, sea stacks and so on. But the wave shadow here has produced a connection, creating a tombolo, which is actually a depositional feature. So barrier islands all up and down the US East Coast, entire coast from the tip of the US to the north down to the Florida coast, ends up having lots and lots of barrier islands, like the Outer Banks, I cannot read everything here, but you can. Cape Hatteras, Cape Lookout, National whatever. Okay, so lots of depositional features all along the coast. And here are some more in the Gulf of Mexico. So the East Coast, including the Gulf of Mexico, is a depositional coast. So Texas has very nice lagoons, shallow water, very warm, very salty places like Corpus Christi Bay, Padre Island, Laguna, Atascosa, whatever. So these are places are famous for vacations like spring break and so on, because they have they make for very nice beaches, very warm weather, very shallow water, and so on. So the barrier islands are very attractive places to build on because you are really in the water right at the ocean. Obviously very heavily developed in New Jersey here, for example, a barrier island that's completely developed. But as we will see later on, that all the wave energy that used to come and erode the barrier island is now going to begin to erode whatever you constructed on it. So more than 2,000 barrier islands exist around the world, and most of them, almost 300 of them, are along the Atlantic and the Gulf Coast of the US. So you can see the barrier islands going all the way from almost the Canadian border down into Florida, tip of Florida, into Gulf of Mexico, and so on. So this entire coast is depositional with lots of barrier islands. So anything that is nice produced by nature is going to become a target for humans to colonize and exploit and use, but it can be obviously dangerous and not always a good thing, and then we do something to prevent the erosion and so on and so forth.